Yes, good afternoon to all our listeners and our welcome to our audience. And this is another in the series of conversations that we're having. It's in collaboration with Jamaica Chamber of Commerce and also with Action Coach Limited. My name is Ian Nita, and I have with me as a co-host Arlene Martin from
Good
Action Coach.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. And then we have two special guests with us this afternoon. We have Rita Hilton, who is the CEO for Carita Jamaica Limited, with us. And of course, she's going to tell us some of our exciting stories. And then we also have Mitzie Gordon Burke-Green from the Jamaica Trading Services Limited. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
I want to, I think about 3 weeks ago, we had Minister on the show on. And in his interview with us, he spoke a lot about a particular shipment of mangoes that he was proud of. And that's when I learned that it was really St. Julian mangoes. We always call it Julian mangoes, but it's actually St. Julian mangoes. And so I really want to kick off by asking Rita. Rita, tell us what got you into that aspect of our exotic fruits and how has it been for you?
Well, Ian, I think exotic fruits like the mangoes are just a small part of our operations. This exciting venue was really a foray into the US market, and the regulations for the US market were pretty stringent and a result of collaboration between the USDA in the United States and the Plant Quarantine Department of the Jamaica government. And so this collaboration identified a small area in St. Thomas that is relatively free of fruit fly. And so those farmers were identified as being able to get their mangoes into the US. And we were identified as one of the two companies because of our packing facilities and our ability to deal with this. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
To be able to deal with the exports and to facilitate this operation. So it was a privilege, an honor, and please to be able to facilitate this shipment of mangoes. A lot of work, and because of COVID and the suspension of flights to the US and between Jamaica and the US, actually our importer chartered a plane and came to Jamaica and picked up the first shipment of mangoes. And I think you see on the screen, Minister Audley, Diane Edwards of Jampro, the collaboration, the buyer, the importer on the extreme left, and Dawson Trading and myself facilitating this first shipment of mangoes. Very exciting. And it led to about 9,000 boxes of mangoes in this season being exported to the US. And the two varieties were St. Julian mangoes and East Indian mangoes. So heads up, it was exciting. We couldn't even satisfy a thumbnail of the demand for the mangoes. It just, I think you've seen some YouTube, some viral examples of people rushing the mangoes and objecting to not having the mangoes. So that's the story on the mangoes. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Here you see some of it.
Yes. What's great about that story are a couple of things there, Rita. You spoke about collaboration, and there was collaboration with country to country, and agency to agency, specifically in terms of agricultural agencies from the United States as well as the government of Jamaica. And another great part of that story was the collaboration of the local exporters, yourself, Carita Jamaica Limited, and Dawson Trading. Can you tell us a little bit about how that collaboration happened?
How that happened, you mean? Oh, I'm sorry,
yes.
I missed that last. Yes.
Yes.
It was months of work and visiting with the farmers and bringing in the mesh bags to line the boxes. And it was collaboration in transportation between Dawson Trading and ourselves, as well as Plant Quarantine, because every shipment of mangoes that went out had to be batched by grower and identified, and Plant Quarantine had to be given notice, and they would site and cut them a percentage of the mangoes to make sure that there were no fruit flies present. And after that, the mangoes had to be transported to Miami. And fortunately for us, American Airlines were able to initiate flights to Houston. And I think that though that mango freight was significant in revenue for them. And so, you know, they still keep calling me and saying, are there any mangoes to go out?
When is the next shipment?
But the season is done, you know, because
Yes.
you need to get at least 1,000 boxes of mangoes. That's 10,000 pounds of mango.
Okay.
I think we may have lost Rita there.
Yeah.
But we can segue into Mitzie. You know, Rita is embarking on promoting the Jamaican brand abroad. And you are in the business of logistics and shipping and brokerage and transportation. Can you tell us what are you doing to facilitate business people like Rita? How is it that you facilitate her kind of business?
Well, for us, Aeon, we're a logistics centered company. So we are doing the service from end to end, and we work with our customers in order to identify, in some instances, the route for the shipment, how we're going to get the cargo to the location, when we will make our bookings, what sort of lead time we will need to have in order to make the bookings. Because again, in some instances, the cargo needs to get to a certain location at a particular time, and we have to work with our customers for that sort of logistics. Now, with COVID, it became a little bit more difficult.
I imagine so.
You know, as you mentioned, the flights were not going, and in some instances, even now, we don't have flights to certain areas, and certain cargo you must move it by air. So we, in instances where we work with our customers where the cargo used to go by air, we are now working with them to say, well, let us look at moving the cargo by ocean, because yes, we might have some delays, but we are actually getting more cargo out by ocean versus via air.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more of how you've had to be flexible in moving goods? So, you know, for example, Rita or Carita Jamaica Limited, that's fresh produce. So with COVID and with the closure of the airport, you say a number of things have to be moved by air, and people have had to look for options of different routes. What are some examples? Tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges that you had with some of your clients, Mitzie, and how you've had to work around that and find new routes for them.
All right, so there are challenges, but I like to look at them as opportunities.
Yes, of course.
This is something that we do on a daily basis for our customers. So COVID made it a little bit more intense, but on a daily basis, we do work closely with our customers. And one example is that very early in the pandemic, one of our agents overseas closed. So we weren't able to get the cargo to Jamaica via that agent, and that's the only agent we had in that area. But based on our worldwide network, we're able to quickly identify another agent to get that cargo moved to Jamaica. We have customers who need to have cargo move out of the UK to Jamaica, but that cargo we would normally move by air. We now had to sit with them, identify their time frames that they needed to get the cargo here, and then to make other arrangements to have the cargo moved by ocean into Jamaica.
Okay. Were there any specific opportunities that have come up since?
Well, there are various opportunities that we have, and we obviously have established new relationships. There are services that we would normally offer that we wouldn't put a lot of emphasis on, and we're doing more so now. We're reaching out to all our customers, both commercial and personal customers, and in some instances, we're actually forced to provide additional service based on what was happening with COVID, because we wanted to. It was mandated that we need to flatten the curve. We need to get the customers off the road. So we were now having to make contact with each of those customers to offer our service, to do the clearance for them, stopping them coming into office. So we would either clear and deliver to them, or we would clear and they would come in and pick up. And this is not a service that we would generally offer to all our customers, but we had to be calling every customer on our list to offer them this service. And yes, we did offer the service at a reduced cost, because there was a bigger picture. The bigger picture was that we needed to get the customers and do our part in helping to flatten the curve. So we had to provide rates for them that were good enough for them to accept it, but we weren't scrimping on the service that we still offer to them. It was our best service, but at a very reduced rate, because the aim was we need to flatten the curve.
Okay.
And
While
back in
keeping
February,
yes,
back
Ian.
in February, we had China being the first trading partner that came under scrutiny in terms of the, imports out of China. And I remember back then we were even considering whether or not the virus could be spread by way of imports.
Right.
China seemed to now be sort of first out of the block in trying to normalize in terms of trade. Have you noticed any difference in our trade with China pre-COVID and now?
When all of this happened in February, the positive thing at the time is that most of our local customers would have had their reserve in place, because we were really going into that time into the Chinese New Year. So production would have been cut. So persons had stock in place. Since COVID, we've had a number of delays because factories were closed for an extended period. In some instances now, we have customers who would have ordered goods in December last year. Those goods are just coming out of the factory now. So yes, there is some impact as it relates to the delay in the movement of the cargo. There is, again, some uncertainty with vessel sailing, because if there's not enough cargo, the vessels are not going to move. So that has resulted in some delays. But we have actually worked with our customers. We had a customer just very recently. He had a contract, but the transit time that he was offering to his customers would have caused him to lose the contract. But when he came to us and we had a discussion, we said, no, this is how we need to do it, because we have to now take all these additional things into consideration because of the pandemic. And because of that, he was able to maintain his contract and provide his customer with the best information.
Okay. That's excellent, working with business owners. Speaking of excellence, I should mention that Rita Hilton is a winner, the ActionCOACH Business Excellence Forum. There are certain award categories, and one of them is Best Exporter Importer. And her first time up as a nominee a couple of years ago, Rita actually won that award. So speaking of excellence, when you mentioned that, Mitzie, it came to mind just in terms of providing value to your customers. I remembered Rita's story. And one of the things you mentioned earlier too, Mitzie, was shifting routes. And Rita, as an exporter of fresh produce and with the disruption in trade routes, because of COVID-19, you also had to make some changes. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you had to do in terms of the shifts, and not just logistically what you had to do, but the mindset, the thinking that you had, because you are so determined to keep exports going. So tell us about that, please.
Okay, so what we lost was the airlift capacity, especially to our customers that were not near seaports. And if you think Canada was our best market, and we had customers like Calgary, Saskatoon, in Winnipeg that were right in the middle of the country, and they were not container load customers. They were like dependent on weekly airlift capacity, and we weren't able to support them. And so we had to shift. And those people that were in the middle of the heartland also had to think about accessing their produce from bigger markets like in Toronto and from those importers. What sustained us at this time, although we lost those markets, was that a lot of our customers shifted to 20-foot and 40-foot containers. So it was just so amazing, because I was so full of gratitude. We did not have to suspend operations in our business. And in fact, we saw our container business expand exponentially. And that means that no line staff had to be put on shift or laid off. And so I was really, really worried about that category of worker because, you know, they depend on paycheck to paycheck. And so my first instinct was get some food supplies, make sure that everybody had chicken and rice and cooking oil and all those staples. But, you know, of course, we couldn't have sustained that for 3 months. And then the container loads started coming in, and fortunately, the sea traffic never stopped. And so we moved more containers in these 3 months than we had done before COVID. And so I'm full of gratitude.
Yes,
and,
excellent.
And my workers too, and my team. Everybody rallied. We worked through the weekends. We worked on holidays, and we got those containers out, you know. Yeah, but it was a challenge because remember, there's a drought. There's a prolonged drought. So some items of produce were not available. Some of them were very high priced, and we had to meet our buyers halfway, cut our margins, but keep those avenues of trade moving and making sure that Jamaican food got into the markets in the US, into Canada, and into the UK.
That's great.
It's so commendable, Rita, for you to express such care for your staff during this difficult period. Many companies can't afford it, but not saying that you can afford it, but you have the will to ensure that their lives are not disrupted too much. But I want your suppliers. I wonder about your supply chain. Can you tell us about how you go about finding your supplies, and what is it like for them during this period? Your farmers and your suppliers. How is that going?
That has been a bit of a problem, Ian, because the drought has affected a number of producers right across the island. You know, yam got short supply, sweet potatoes got into short supply. A lot of farmers lost their crops with pumpkins because they're dependent on the rainfall, you know, and that supply of water was not coming in. We got a little bit of disruption to our farmers who were supplying peppers for our big market with Golden Crust in New York. We've been supplying them for 10 years with peppers and thyme. But, you know, we were close to our suppliers. We talked to them. We asked them what the problems were. And fortunately, they came through for us. We accelerated our payment program because normally we pay them within 7 working days. We got our suppliers to send us, you know, to change their pattern of sending the remittances. So more money was flowing into the system. That means that we were able to generate quicker payments to the farmers, keep them on board, and keep them happy. And this is how we survived that period. But what needs to be done? We need to have a real shift in agricultural policy. We need to get to grow with technology, to produce with technology. So we cut down our production, and so we can increase the acreage of our mangoes, for example. You know, 9,000 boxes of mangoes is a drop in the bucket compared to the demand that there is there. We could increase our agricultural exports 300% to what we're doing now. And that means more foreign exchange for Jamaica, and that means creating more jobs, creating more opportunities, making our food supply secure. But we really need to get to grips with a solid base of research, technology, and give our farmers the tools to produce efficiently, at the same time for them to earn sustainable incomes and then to generate good returns for the country. So we really need to get that going, that partnership, not only with the farmers, but with every level, the research, the infrastructure, the technology, that needs to get done, and urgently.
And I'm happy you spoke about policy as well, because there's a general complaint that the cost of export is just too high. That the rigors that you have to go through to export doesn't make it attractive for people to enter that business. Is there a comment you have in respect of the procedures and the cost of exporting?
Well, you know, Ian, that's a song I've been singing ever since I started in the export business 30 years ago.
Yes.
Okay. Does it get easier? It's a little bit easier than when I started. When I started, it was 22 different agencies you had to go before that export shipment went out, right? Is it a little easier? I think it's easier to do imports than to do exports. And we really have to get our system, the ActionCOACH system, the one shift portal that we've been talking, Jamaica Swift, the fact that we are importing materials for export and we are still getting duties and we have to get clearances every time we bring in packaging for export. It is a nightmare and it detracts from productive time. We need to be looking at how to increase our exports, how to make the process easier and less expensive. Now, I'll give you a small example. The packaging that we bring for the mangoes, it's a liner for the box that doesn't allow fruit fly, should there be one, in the box to escape from it. Do you know that we had to bring in all that packaging? It's not made in Jamaica. And the customs levied a duty of $90,000 on 10,000 plastic bags. That's ridiculous. That's not staying in Jamaica. It cannot be made in Jamaica. And why do we have to appeal to JAMPRO and then to appeal all different agencies and waste time and incur charges at the airport or the port to clear these goods? Every time we have to get a duty-free or waiver on GCT, you have to renew that thing every year. You know, we're not flying away. We've been in business for 30 years. If you have to get a permit, you have to go to the veterinary division. And the same product is going out every shipment. And yet you have to drive up to Hope Gardens, get that permit, and before your shipment can go out. Those are the little crappy things that impede the speed and efficiency and the cost of doing exports.
Okay.
Are we serious?
I just want to follow up on that. Let me follow up on that a little bit, Annie, with Mitzie. Because,
yes, please.
You know, when it comes to the handling of goods coming into and out of the country, you know, we hear a lot of talk about the port community systems. And it is supposed to, you know, create a paperless environment. It's supposed to link all the port systems. And, you know, I hear now that they are having, you know, truck booking systems. Mitzie, how is that working for you? Is that making your life a lot better? Is it now a more seamless transaction when you're exporting and importing through our ports?
All right, so Ian, we do have a number of systems that we're working with. We're working with ActionCOACH. We're working with the port community system. The J-Swift, which is the single window, just came on stream.
Yeah.
And I'll always say it is work in progress. We have had problems and we do continue to have problems. And this is where lobby groups come in, like the JCC, to raise these concerns as the importers and the exporters raise these concerns along with the persons on the port, your customs broker, your freight forwarder. Those concerns are raised by them, but we also need that support from the customers, the importers and the exporters themselves to make the voices heard so that customs and the other parties understand exactly what is being experienced. In saying that, however, we have made a lot of stride in the improvement of the various systems that we're using. As a CUDA, we've had our problems, but we had none last year in December, and a good test normally of any system is what happens at Christmas, because that is our bumper period. And we had no downtime, or none that I can recall. Now, what it did for us, especially during this time of the pandemic, we had to, in some instances, have our staff working from home. And we were able to still prepare our customers' declarations. We were able to still submit those declarations and get the work done. So yes, there are benefits. The port community system, we have had a number of modules in place now, the last one being the truck appointment system. And as I would again always say, we will have teething problems, but there are improvements. PCS, they do listen when we speak. We have regular meetings with them, and the concerns that are raised are normally aired. And I think going forward, when the systems are fully operational, because they're still working on all of these systems, when they are fully operational, they will be good for our economy. I can say that out of Jamaica, we are leaders in this area. Out of the Caribbean, sorry, we are leaders in this area of port operations. And I think that is significant for us. So it's not all over. There's still work to be done, but we've had much improvement and we have seen the benefits of using these systems.
Okay.
And you say you're leaders in the region, but just moving to the region a little, to facilitate trade, intra-regional trade among CARICOM, we need good shipping lines and facilities. How is it? How do you see us promoting more trade among Caribbean and even the wider Latin American countries?
You know what COVID did for us? It had actually introduced some markets for some of our local exporters, because when we weren't able to get the cargo to elsewhere or our standard markets, we were able to get it into the Caribbean. So that has actually opened some doors for us to get into the Caribbean. And yes, we do need more business between the Caribbean islands, because if you have to send something to one of the islands, we might have to send it by the US. We should be able to get that move directly into the Caribbean and obviously reducing the costs. So that is something that needs to be looked at. And I suppose the Shipping Association can be engaged, because the shipping lines are the persons who would be making the decisions. But this also bears heavily on the cargo that needs to be moved. Now, we know that Jamaica export is really not our strongest point here. We do more imports than we do export. Over the years, however, we have been working significantly in the movement of our goods out of Jamaica. And we do need that export business for our GDP. We do need that. So with that push, generally, then we can say, well, maybe in another 5 or 10 years, maybe 10 years might be too long, we should be able to have cargo moving through the Caribbean instead of having to go outside of the Caribbean to come back into the Caribbean.
Okay, thank you for that, Mitzie. That connected a little bit for me when you said that we're doing better on the import side than the export side. So, and I think that's something that we definitely have to shift, and hopefully we're able to. And we have players like Rita working on that, as I mentioned. Outstanding in export. Now, when it comes to opportunities, you spoke about new markets opening up for our products, and that came about at this time. Clearly, we saw that there is a strong demand for our products when we told about the export of mangoes. And Rita also spoke about supply conditions where we could be supplying more, and to not just our market, but export markets, meeting that demand if we were to address some things locally in the area of agricultural exports and just exports of other products. Rita, you're quite passionate about working with farmers to get our products out there. You collaborate a lot with, act as a resource to the Ministry of Agriculture and its agencies in a number of particular areas, and you're not sticking to fresh produce only. You started moving into value-added products, and all of these are areas where Jamaica can increase its exports and contribute to feeding the world, basically, especially at a time like this, not just ourselves. What's your hope? What's your vision for exports from Jamaica? And possibly you can speak about agricultural exports only. However, what's your vision and what's your hope for agricultural exports, and how do you see it coming back to impact our communities?
Well, I think that this sector can take Jamaica out of poverty, the agricultural sector, and it needs a complete shift in how we produce and what we produce. We know that the microclimate in Jamaica tends to give our produce a unique flavor. Okay, you take the sweet potatoes from Jamaica, and when they're signposted as sweet potatoes from Jamaica, they fetch a higher price. Wow. And people will tell you the innate flavor of the pumpkin, the sweet potatoes, the yellow yam, even if other countries are producing it, Scotch bonnet peppers, for example, the flavor is unique. And this is what we need to capitalize on. We need to preserve what is so good about Jamaica and brand Jamaica and expand on it. And there are so many valuable products that can be made, that so much of our produce goes to waste. You look at breadfruit, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Jamaicans eat breadfruit, roasted, sliced, fried, okay? It can be boiled and used as mashed potato. It can be turned into a cereal. It can be turned into a pancake mix. It is gluten-free. And that goes for all the tubers that we have: sweet potato, cassava. We don't eat cassava in Jamaica, except as bami, okay?
Yeah.
Cassava is a staple food in Africa. It's in Brazil. It's in Central America. We need to develop these flavors. We need to excite our population about the possibilities locally of Jamaican food and to add value. And so we make it easier for people who come to visit, the tourists, and they'll say, okay, I had this wonderful yellow yam in, where can I get it? How do I prepare it? So we need to make those foods easier to prepare.
Okay, so
I think we
yeah,
lost.
we lost. Yes. So let me just comment. Because she's mentioning
Yeah.
food preparation and just innovation. So there are a number of things that's driving that. So she mentioned breadfruit. So there's a breadfruit flour product that they have available on the market. There's a frozen, ready-to-eat bami product that she has, and then doing other product development for frozen, ready-to-eat products that can be exported. So really looking at where we have the challenges, because she mentioned some of the challenges that we have with exporting fresh produce, such as the fruit flies for mangoes. People still want breadfruit. We may not be able to export it. So how can it be processed? And those are some of the things that her company is working on. And I was about to get her to tell us a little bit more about that. So maybe she'll tell us about that when she joins.
The interesting thing she said, though, Arlene, was that about the taste. Because
Yes.
I always thought that, we liked it because we were used to it. And that, but evidently it is the taste in our mangoes and our bananas, for example. When I compare the taste of our bananas to a Dole banana, is worlds apart. But then, I had put it down to our taste buds. But if Jamaica has this really unique taste, our Scotch bonnet peppers and all of that, I mean, we should be moving beyond the diaspora. We should be moving beyond the UK and Canada and the US markets. And I know that she must have that in her plans to expand beyond these
I'm so
markets.
sorry. I got
Yes.
That's a kind of service provider. But if every facet of Jamaican agriculture, whether it is producing feed for livestock, whether it is nutraceutical, we have such a rich store of nutraceutical herbs and to make teas, and we have.
I think she's frozen. Rita, are you hearing us?
Right, and the incentives. There's no venture capital in Jamaica that allows young entrepreneurs to the free reign to produce and to celebrate this rich culture and history of ours, and this very rich store of foods that we have in Jamaica. So for me, I'm very positive. I mean, I've been in business for 30 years, and I wish I had another 20 to continue growing the sector and stimulating it, and because I think it's so exciting.
Yes. So speaking of exciting, Ian was just wondering, while we're waiting for you to rejoin, about positioning now beyond the diaspora. And I was telling them about the breadfruit flour, some of the ready to eat. You mentioned nutraceuticals in terms of the teas. So tell us specifically about that strategy of getting more into the mainstream or even specialty food markets, leveraging things that can cross over, such as the demand for gluten-free. And so how do you know just position breadfruit, not necessarily on the traditional, but on the gluten-free? So tell us a little bit more of that diversification strategy that you have.
Okay, so, I've been looking at breadfruit in Hawaii. It's called ulo. And the trees that Feed Foundation has been supporting the cultivation of breadfruit trees, not only in Jamaica, but in the islands, in Africa, all over. And, it came up with an idea. Look, so much breadfruit goes to waste. I'm just giving you one example of one product. And do you know, during the season in Hawaii, they collect all the breadfruit, they steam it, they freeze it, they vacuum potatoes. It can be used, as a staple, and yet it is gluten-free. And, so many people have issues with their health. So that's only one example. You take the cassava, you can make chips, you can make flour, you can cook it, you can boil it, you can make cassava cakes, you can do all kind. That again is gluten-free, and it grows so easily. You take a stick, a piece of the stem, put it in the ground, and it produces flour, So it's a cheap, easy to produce food. So we need to expand those kinds of horizons. I love food. I don't eat a lot of food, but I love preparing it in exciting ways. And I love to share it with everybody around me. Do you know, we moved into our own factory space, and I'm going to start a kitchen garden with a school down the road and teach them the value and nutrition of growing their own food, whether we put the growing medium on the wall, whether we use tires, whether we use drums. And then we're going to bring them into the canteen and cook this food and say, you don't have to have fried chicken and chips. You can have fried breadfruit. You can have cassava chips. You can have sweet potato chips. And you can grow your own callaloo. You can make a quiche. You can eat callaloo, steamed callaloo and codfish. You can eat it any way you want. So I'm so excited by this project. Having moved into our own space, I'm making a little corner for the children. I'm going to teach them entrepreneurial skills. I'm going to teach them about the value of food and good natural food with goodness. So I'm really excited. And at this stage of my life, I'm not stopping. I'm thinking of all the possibilities.
Okay.
Oh man, we lost Rita again.
So let me ask you, very exciting. Mitzie, she has a big vision for agriculture.
Right.
You see things coming into Jamaica, you see things going out of Jamaica. You spoke about some of the challenges, but what's your vision when you think about the movement? Because you said that exports is also very important. So what's your vision for it, and how are you positioned to help Jamaican companies, whether they are small or large, to begin to tap into those markets so that we can grow our export? So how are you positioned for that?
All right, so export is as we know, we need it. Yes. Or there's a significant demand for our Jamaican product, whether it be the yam, the bananas, as Rita says, the teas. Persons are exporting a lot of teas to Europe. Just the bush, the weed for the teas, they're doing a lot of export in that. And we are properly positioned, because what we do now is that we interact with prospective exporters. Persons are contacting us from as early as just getting out of the blocks, needing to register with JAMPRO. What are the information? What are the requirements for sending the cargo out of Jamaica? Because again, for agricultural items, we know that there are some restrictions, some requirements that needs to be met. So they're getting started early by making contact with us to provide that guidance and getting registered, and also what happens in the destination markets, what sort of trade agreements are in place that they can benefit from. So these are some of the things that we're working with our customers on now in order to help them to ensure that there's a smooth process for moving the cargo here from Jamaica to wherever the destination is, and ensuring that they're benefiting from whatever trade agreements are in place. And I think that's somewhere that we fall on significantly. We don't always employ the trade agreements that Jamaica has signed on to. And for me, that is a passion now, that we need to ensure that our customers with their cargo going out or coming in benefit from the trade agreements that are in place.
So just a quick question, just almost a clarification. So you described some services. Are those more your consulting services that I know you offer, or would you say that you act as an export trading partner or an export, even a trading agency? Do you do that at all, or just the consulting services?
We are licensed custom brokers. We are freight forwarders. So we do from preparing the documentation, we book the cargo to go out. So we provide the entire service. But before we get to that point of preparing the documentation, then we also have to deal with what happens before the packing house. What happens there? Are they registered? So we do provide consultation for our customers, so that when the cargo gets to the port, it sails. We don't have a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Mitzie, we haven't heard too much recently about the logistics hub and the benefits that could accrue to Jamaica from the expanding waterways between the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. Have you noticed any increased traffic as a result of the new waterway?
Well, like you, we haven't had much information recently as it relates to the logistics hub, but we know we have entities who are making themselves logistics entity, because we have motor vehicles coming into Jamaica from Asia or from production areas, and they're coming here to then be distributed to different islands. So we have individual companies who have taken it on, so to be a logistics service provider. But then as it relates from a global means Jamaica global perspective, then we haven't had a lot of push in that area.
Okay. There's some comments for Rita.
Yes. So Rita, Sylvia Mitchell, she's now at UWI. I'm sure you know Sylvia. She actually, I'm just learning this. Yes, I'm just learning this. You actually taught her at St. Hugh's. So Rita started with us at right. She wants to know if you're going to be writing a book of your experiences. So Sylvia, actually, maybe you could work with Rita on this project. It would be a great project for Jamaicans, actually, just to hear about some of these things. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you know, Rita, your story is powerful, and your excitement is contagious. And I guess some of us Jamaicans are wondering when will we have a chance to participate in your company by way of an IPO? Is that something that, I know you're a nice family-owned, easy to manage business, but have you ever thought about listing?
It is a family-owned business, but you know, having been in COVID and having reached a significant age, I have had time to think, and I think it's time to look at an exit strategy. But Ian,
okay. Yeah, so that is something for discussion.
I mean, that's a cliffhanger. That is.
Yes.
Yeah, the answer to that one.
Okay. Well,
Ali, you want to do a wrap?
Yes. Mitzie, thank you so much. What I'd love to hear from you is, do you have any tips, or what would be your top tip for Jamaican businesses getting into trade? Now, I'm going to stick to the export side of it, to be honest, in terms of, and I think it's great that you offer the services that you do. We don't just come to you, and I say we, as business owners, once we're ready to get it onto the vessel, you're actually helping people know. So encouraging people or driving people towards that, where you see it as an opportunity, what would be 1 or 2 tips that you'd give to persons to either consider increasing export activity or beginning to export?
All right, so let's just take the beginning first. One of significance, what needs to happen is the research. The research needs to go in place as it relates to what is required for the movement of the cargo, what is required for the cargo to be received at destination. Because we often come upon somebody sees something and thinks it's a good idea, purchase it, and they're ready to go. But then when they're ready to go, then there are restrictions. So it is important that the research has been done. They need to know the market. They need to understand the customers that they're going to be targeting. The research, I can't stress that enough. It is important, and they need to understand the industry within which they will be looking to work. So those are things that are significant for the starter. It is also important for persons already in business, and for me is to listen to the team and listen to the customers. We need to listen to the team, listen to the customers. We maybe in the leadership position might think we have all the answers, but sometimes the best information comes from the team. And in some instances, depending on how close you are with your customer, the best information comes from your customer, understanding what it is that they need. So it's really about putting yourself out there to do the research and ensuring that you have the right information to make proper decisions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Mitzie. Welcome back, Rita. We're going to wrap, but before we wrap, do you have a tip or a word of encouragement for new exporters? I won't say young, just people wanting to get into export. What would you encourage someone to do? export generally, or even just agriculture, because you spoke about the opportunities on the supply side.
Was that question for me, Ali?
Yes, yes,
I
Rita.
didn't hear it
Yes.
clearly. Yeah.
Yes.
You're
So a tip for
asking me.
someone wanting to get into export, so export generally, or getting into agriculture because of the opportunities on the supply side, and meaning to supply products for agricultural export. What would you encourage someone? How would you encourage someone?
I'm actually on a farmers page, Farmers of Jamaica, and I've posted on it that if anybody is interested in farming and producing with good technology, that they should get in touch with us, because we would offer them, first of all, a ready market that they don't have to look for local markets alone to sustain them. So I'm looking for supply chain linkages. So I think if you're going into farming, look for markets, whether they are local or whether they're export. If you're going into export, I think research your market very, very thoroughly and use whatever resources, JAMPRO, the Blue Book, which is a produce book that lists all the importers of note, and who will are listed on the book, will not carry you down. So research your market and make sure that you have all the dots and I's crossed. For example, use Jamaica Trading Services to find out the most economical way to get your product there.
That's a good one.
Start small and start, don't just jump into it feet first and then because I'm going to become a customer of Jamaica Trading Services. I'm very happy to meet Mitzie.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Rita.
I'm saying there are so many resources available. Use all of them before you jump in. Since COVID, I've been flooded with requests. Show me how to export. Teach me how to export. Let me see how I can get into the export market. You have to be careful, because there are so many sharks out there that are ready to swallow you. And if you're a small startup, you don't want to lose your first shipment or your second shipment. So, be careful and get the advice. We offer free advice. If you come to me and say, I'm going to ship, and I'll say, where are you shipping to? Who are you shipping to? It's not because I want your customer. I don't need any new customers. I want to advise you in case you jump into some shark's mouth. So I will tell you, don't go there or go there, or yes, try this. But you can always come to me as a resource person. I'll be willing to help. But please do your research carefully. There are markets.
I think Sylvia has found a solution. You must write that book.
Yes, write the book. And it's interesting that Rita is repeating the same thing that Mitzie said in terms of the information, knowing the market first. What I find even more interesting is when we started out with the minister, and you mentioned that earlier, Ian, he spoke about agriculture and he spoke about exports and the importance of that to growing the economy. And here we are talking about exports and specifically agricultural exports. And this is one area that can really help us in getting to that strong, resilient post-COVID economy. So I hope people are paying attention. So we started out with the minister talking about export and agriculture. We have these ladies. We heard the great stories of Rita. The market is there. There are trading partners. So Rita has the markets. Mitzie has the channel. She'll get the products there. And guess what? Last week when we were talking, and Rita is encouraging people to enter the sector. Last week when we were talking to Mariam Robinson from First Global Bank, she spoke about the sectors that they support. And one of the sectors for startup funding is actually agriculture. So, and their SME hub focuses on agriculture as well. So interesting. 3 or 4 candid conversations we're talking about agricultural export trade. So if a person's interested, just a number of resources so far on it. So I think this has been an excellent conversation. Thank you both ladies for the information that you have shared. And it really is, what I love about this is, at this time, it's not the negatives. It's not about the downturn. It's that, Mitzie spoke to us about Jamaica Trading Company and keeping the products moving and having to adjust and helping people with that. So it's great that we have partners like that. And Rita, increasing containerized shipments of fresh produce at a time like this, so actually increasing exports even during the COVID time. And actually moving things by air. You know, a strong demand, a buyer actually chartering an aircraft to come here to pick up mangoes for the US market. So I think this is just very positive, something that there are probably people out there that really want to hear this kind of information at this time. So really thank you so much, ladies. Ian, from a chamber perspective, close out. I know you guys look at these sectors as was hinted to, you know, you're one of those voices for advocacy. So, you know, just how you continue supporting businesses. So I'll hand over to you to close us out.
I can only say that
just a quick thing that I'd like to leave with you as well, if you'll allow.
Yes, of course.
You know, we're in a time of pandemic, and over the centuries, pandemic and war has changed how we do business, has changed industries, and those changes became normals then, and those that we are following now, we are there again, where this pandemic is making us changes. And I'll say to persons, you know, in business, tear up the box. Don't just think outside the box, tear up the box, because we are now having to embrace new normals.
Okay, thanks.
Wow. Well, you know, what an inspiring note to end on. I mean, we have thoroughly enjoyed this engagement with you both. You've certainly enhanced the conversations that we are having. And, you know, Jamaica Chamber of Commerce is the voice of business and ActionCOACH. It's a pleasure working along with ActionCOACH to just bring these conversations and to help businesses to grow. And so it has been a delightful experience for us, and we really thank you for coming on, and we appreciate your presence and look forward to further engagement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
thank
bye.
you.
Okay.